You're listening to The Dating Den with dating and relationship badass and best-selling author Marni Batista. Every week, you'll get the raw truth from top experts and real people on the important dating, sex, and relationship issues you want to know about. So if you're ready for true talk that's authentic and unfiltered, and you're not afraid to be called out on your stuff, then you're ready for what's next.
The Dating Den, episode 59 with Sanjana, the ghosting epidemic. How to handle it with your dignity intact. Ladies, welcome into my den of dating. I am really happy to talk to you. It's fall, it's getting dark early, and some of you might want to just stay in your den with the holidays coming up, etc. when it comes to men. But no, you must carry on. And for that reason, I have brought in a really cool woman. Sanjana is here with us because she is the representative from the tribe wanting to know what the hell do you do when somebody ghosts, because it's happening all day long, every day, all across the world. And it's really super frustrating. So let me just tell you a little bit about Sanjana. And here's sort of what was like the straw that broke the camel's back for her. She had this long-standing communication with a guy who she thought he was cool. He seemed pretty deep. And they met in real life, but then he moved to the East Coast, which was very far away because she lives in the West Coast area. And for 2 years, they hung out. It was completely unclear, really, whether they were friends or not. But there was also this hint of romance. And of course, there was an ex-girlfriend. And lo and behold, he ghosted. So we want to dive into that. We want to talk about some other ghosting experiences that have happened to her. But her big question is like, how do I get closure? You know, it's totally out of my control. If a guy is going to disappear on me, what do I do to feel satisfied in the end? So welcome, Sanjana, to the den.
Hi, I'm really happy to be here. It's really exciting to be here and talking with you.
So tell me, did I get I probably butchered your story a little bit, but did I get it close?
Yeah, I think you summarized it pretty well. That's kind of the gist of what happened. There was a lot of emotional connection, and this was going on for 2 years, on and off communication, FaceTiming. And so it wasn't just kind of like I had met him randomly. There was, we could almost say it was kind of a relationship, but not really.
Right. It wasn't really a relationship. So, I mean, the first kind of ghosting we kind of want to talk about then is, this is pretty substantial in that it's not your like random, I went out on 2 or 3 dates with you and then you just completely disappeared after like a great date. This is somebody that, you were really in connection with for a long time. So I think, your question was, what do I do to have closure? But what I'd like to do also is kind of point out how you could avoid something like this happening in the future. Would that be good?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah.
So the first thing is, when you begin to engage in this sort of long distance technology based relationship, were you really clear in your own mind what it was that you were looking for from him?
At the time, I was really just looking to get to know people. I did want a long-term relationship, but at the moment, my intention was just to get to know him, so it wasn't set right away.
Okay. And were you afraid in any way, shape, or form, because you got to be honest, because it's the den, were you afraid that if you let him know that you were looking for that, maybe he might not be interested in the same? There
is always that fear of because the stereotypical guys aren't really looking for relationships, but I knew that the only way to get what I wanted would be to really set the boundary. But I had hinted at wanting a relationship long term, eventually if things went well, and he kind of agreed also kind of said the same thing. He was like, yeah, well, I would want a relationship too if things went well, but It wasn't like, oh, I'm looking for a relationship, and if that's not what you want, then maybe we shouldn't continue talking. I had never really set that boundary that firmly.
Okay. So a couple things. One is I've uncovered here, a very big limiting belief, Sanjana, which is you said, I know stereotypical guys aren't really looking for a relationship. Did you notice that you said that?
Yeah.
Okay. So first thing is, if you go into something with this belief that like guys aren't looking for relationships, then you're setting yourself up in what position? How are you going into the whole process if you have that belief?
With the mindset that they don't want a relationship.
Yeah. I mean, how's that going to affect how you show up, the choices that you make?
Yeah, he's not going to be, our interactions won't be from that mindset. They won't have that value to them.
Well, right, exactly, because you're going into it. I call it like the victim and the victor, and you're kind of going into it like in the victim, meaning like, okay, well, I'll play by your rules because, most guys don't want relationships, so I'm just going to be the cool girl.
Yeah.
Right? You know about the cool girl,
yeah.
Right? I'm just going to be the cool girl, and hopefully I'll be so cool that then over time he'll like want to be in a relationship with me.
Yeah, I definitely tried to play with that from that mentality.
And how did that work?
Clearly not very well.
Right. So here's the thing. So you start out going in that like, pick me. There's so many ways this leaks into your relationships, ladies. And by the way, Sanjana, like everyone does this, which is why it's so cool that you volunteered to represent the tribe on ghosting. Because what happens is that we start to be so low key and not have needs and not ever address any like big or important topics. And we just kind of get carried along like, like a leaf, being carried down like a river. We don't know where it's going to go. You're just kind of floating along. And so then when something abrupt happens like ghosting, there's a lot of built up frustration, maybe even resentment, because the whole time emotionally he was kind of ghosted anyway. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
Okay. Now, when you were kind of in this off and on thing for 2 years, talking to him almost every day on technology, did you ever, over those 2 years, like bring up any kind of future talk, or did you try and like find out if he was into you in another way, or was he dating other people? Did you try to figure that stuff out?
Yeah, I did. There was this period of time where we were talking, and I was like, since things are going well, I think that we're at the point now I think that we're at the point now where we could potentially meet, and how does that sound for you? And he was just like, yeah, totally, like that's super, like I'd be down for that, like we should book a ticket and meet in the middle of the United States, so that it's fair to so that we're not kind of going, so I'm not going to the East Coast and then he's not coming to the West Coast, so that we could find a place, kind of the happy medium.
Right.
And we started talking about getting really close to planning. And then, there'd be excuses popping up, partly on, because I was busy and then he was busy. So it never really happened. But there was this talk of like, I really, I think you're cool and I want to be in a relationship with you, and you're somebody that I could see myself dating, and it got pretty romantic and intimate, and that's, I think, when things started to get a little bit difficult for me emotionally, because I started to get a bit attached.
Right, because whether it's phone sex or not, it still counts, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So here's the other like little flaw in the formula, is that you initiated that getting together.
Yes, I proposed the idea.
You did propose the idea. So we want men to sort of lead and make those choices. Now, what you could do is you could say, I'm in a place where I'm definitely having feelings for you, and I know for me, because I'm looking for a long-term relationship, it's important for us to meet. And then you stop talking.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Because what happens is you want to let the guy know what you desire, what it is that you want. And then that invites him to step up or step out.
Okay.
And what happened is you did that. And then he kind of, gingerly avoided it. And then, of course, there were some times you couldn't meet. And then you're going like, should I bring it up again? Should I not bring it up again? I don't want to be pushy. And again, you get into that, well, I want to be the cool girl. So I don't want to really set a boundary. Make sense?
Right. Yeah.
Okay. And then you become ultimately long-term friends with benefits or long-distance friends with benefits.
Yeah. That's the annoying part.
It's so annoying. So what happens is that then this thing that I call pseudo-intimacy gets created, which is it's like you're intimate emotionally, but you're really not because you're only talking on the phone, you're only FaceTiming. And then you get the physical part into the mix and you're in a relationship, like a faux relationship. I call it your faux beau, right? You have a faux beau who really isn't your boyfriend, but emotionally you're getting connected. And what happened with him is that was probably like the thing that pushed him off the ledge and then he started to pull away, right?
Right. Yeah.
Okay. So he's not a jerk. So he started to feel guilty is my best guess. He knew that he didn't want what you wanted or he couldn't deliver what you wanted. There's long distance. There's so many things that were sort of like in the way.
Right.
I know one of the things you wrote when you talked to our producer was like, was it me? Could I have done anything wrong? Like, and the bottom line is you'll never know that. And the reason why is because you never asked.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Like along the way, there were all these steps to take to get clarity based on your needs and what you're looking for and the timeline and geography. And because you just were the cool girl, you just went along like that little leaf. It just went into like friendship, then emotional intimacy, then this sexual intimacy, and then there was no frame around it. And then suddenly you don't meet and he disappears.
Right. Right.
That makes sense?
And I think along the way, there were times when I did back off, and you're completely right about that, where I was playing the cool girl and I was like, well, I don't want to, I just kind of want to let him do his own thing and not be too pushy. And then there were also times where it was getting to a point where I would be really frustrated and I would suddenly kind of almost, well, in a way, blindside him with what I needed. And that's when he would be like, oh, okay, I think I might be losing her. So I'm going to I'm just going to say, oh yeah, like we should meet up, or I'm going to look for tickets, or I swear I'm going to come see you. And it just became to this thing where it's like, you're just telling me things for it that sound good to me.
Right. The crumbs, right? So
yeah.
It's like he had, I call it, like boyfriend privileges without having to take boyfriend responsibility.
Yeah.
Yeah. So how does this pertain to ghosting, you might ask? Well, here's the thing. When we are like kind of in that cool girl mentality and then we don't get our needs met and things progress and the guy that is the object of our affection really isn't standing up and choosing in, what can happen is they can get overwhelmed. There's a reason why they haven't stepped up and they can't deal with it. And so they disappear because they don't have the emotional wherewithal. Bottom line, I always say like rejection is God's protection, right? Like he's probably not your guy because he couldn't put his like big boy pants on and say like, look, Sanjana, like I really like you. And I just wish that we lived in the same city. And I wish that and I'm not ready to be in a relationship with you right now. That would have been so much better, right?
Exactly.
But he didn't have the balls to do it.
Nope. No.
So
Yeah.
I know it's frustrating. So to answer your question, like, how can you get closure? Why do you need closure?
That's a good question. I think for me to properly move on, I think I need closure. I think it also answers in a way whether it had something to do with me or whether it was just he wasn't ready. And also it's just that you spend time thinking like, oh, maybe he's just really busy. and he'll respond in a few days, and then the day that he stopped talking to me and cut off all communication, I was thinking like, oh, I wonder what's going on, and I'm spending all this energy on coming up with reasons and trying to either, protect my own emotions by coming up with reasons that he might have cut off communication. And I think it's an easy way for me to move on when I have closure. I also think at this point, some part of me, I deserve closure because we were talking for 2 years. And I think that's what hurts, is not knowing.
Yeah, totally. Well, there's a couple of things there. One is that it's not you. You didn't, quote unquote, do anything wrong. Mm-hmm. So your homework is to get to that place where you can be that woman who's like, you know what? It wasn't a match.
Mm-hmm.
There's a million reasons why it wasn't a match. Sometimes it's just not a connection. Sometimes it's geography. Sometimes it's timing. There's a lot of different things. But my best guess is, if he says, it's not you, it's me, is that going to like really make you feel better?
Not really, actually.
Yeah. Like if he was like, oh, Sanjana, I'm really, it's not you, it's me. I'm such a jerk. I da-da-da. If anything, what would your response to that be?
That would actually make me feel worse, and I would sort of, that would make me feel worse. I'd be actually really angry, and plus, I don't think I'd buy that either.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'd be like, no, that's not it.
That's not it. Okay, now considering this guy is a dude who ghosted, on a scale of 1 to 10, Sanjana, how likely is it that he, like, number one, picks up the phone and says, well, yeah, I just really honestly wasn't that into you, and I'm really sorry. I know that hurts your feelings, but the truth is, I'm just not that into you. How likely is he going to say that?
That my answer doesn't even fit on that scale. Like, not even likely.
Okay. So in reality, your fantasy of like knowing why he left or why he disappeared, is that really going to happen?
No, probably not.
Because he's going to say, I was really busy. That's bullshit. Greg Bernhard wrote that book a million years ago. He's not just that into you. And I'll never forget, because I was in my own crazy at the time that book came out. And I remember there's this chapter and he says, like, nobody is that busy. You can call people accidentally, like with your butt. You know what I mean? Like, you can send a text message. You don't even have to push buttons anymore, right? You could just speak, Siri, send Sanjana a message. That takes like 17 seconds.
Yeah.
He was not too busy.
Yeah.
He's kind of a douche.
Yeah.
Okay. That's my own opinion. But here's the thing. So, and it's okay, because people who aren't in integrity are suffering, and they're always doing the best they can at that moment, even if it's not the best that we need.
Mm-hmm.
It's just that he's not emotionally capable of having the kind of honest relationship that you ultimately want.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah.
So third thing, Sanjana, how in your fantasy do you actually contact him?
Like, you mean
to get closure? Do you text him? Do you call him? How does that go down?
Honestly, it's just me calling and you picking up the phone, or me texting. But I just think I've already done that. So.
And does he answer?
No.
Okay. So how much more shitty do you need to feel to get the message?
That's true. Yeah, I mean, I already feel like a fool. And so I think, yeah, that's true. I guess, reaching out to him, first of all, he probably wouldn't even answer. And then it's just like me trying and trying, at least. I guess also silence is an answer too.
100%.
Yeah.
Right? Your actions always scream a lot louder than your words.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Okay, so I have some homework for you.
Mm-hmm.
To make sure that you don't text him or call him.
Mm-hmm.
Would you like some homework?
Yeah.
Okay.
I like homework.
You're going to laugh, but this is your homework. And you're going to have to search for it a little bit. There is a movie, and you're probably, did you ever, I know you're kind of young-ish. Did you ever hear of the movie Swingers?
I did.
Okay. I want you to go on YouTube And I want you to like look up swingers. Like there's a section where he's trying to call this girl. It's kind of old, so he's leaving her messages on an answering machine.
Mm-hmm.
So I want you to look up like swingers answering machine.
Okay.
Okay, and I want you to watch that because you're going to laugh, but you're also going to cry because you don't want to be the character, that guy. He literally keeps calling back this girl because she's not calling him back.
Okay.
He's like, oh, I know you're not picking up. Oh, I know I'm really annoying now. I know, da, 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 da. Okay, now I know I'm really sorry. Literally probably does it like 30 times.
Yeah.
The reason why I want you to do that is because that is for the person on the other end, right? That's the experience. They're like, oh God, like I'm so ashamed. I'm like, I blew her off. Oh, this makes me feel shitty. Oh, it's coming in. Turn it off. Turn over my phone. Oh, this makes me feel bad. And you're going to feel bad like that guy was just like digging himself in a hole, and you're going to lose your dignity, Sanjana.
Mm-hmm.
If you keep trying to get closure, because you have closure, you know the answer.
Mm-hmm. That's true. That answers my question. I was going to ask, like, how do we date with dignity in these kinds of situations? And I think what you're saying right now really fits in with that. That at least I have my dignity instead of going on and reaching out to him when I already have the answer.
You have the answer. And all you can do is, you know, I always advise, and I know this again, this sounds kind of odd, but when you think of him, like imagine like throwing him like blessings of like light and love so that he can get over whatever is blocking him from having what he wants in his life. Because for somebody to disappear on somebody after 2 years, I don't care. You know, he's not a robot. He's living with that. He's living with that. That's shitty.
Yeah.
And from what you described, he was like a smart person, like, you know, like a grown up functional man. So all you can do is, you know, try to forgive him. You can't forget it because it was completely inappropriate, super disrespectful, and very hurtful. So he's not off the hook. So you get to feel angry about it and then realize that, you know, when we stay in our anger and our frustration and attachment needing closure, it's hurting us. It's not hurting him.
Yeah.
Because what do you really want?
The answer that satisfies me.
Right? And the answer that you really want is I am important and I am loved.
Yeah.
And he's not the guy who's going to give you that.
Yeah.
So the best thing you can do right now is to be that for yourself. Right? I am important. I am lovable. So if you stand in that energy, in that truth, then you need to pivot away, let him go, you know, put on that song, you know, baby, I'm worth it, you know, dance around your house and like shake him off. Yeah. And go back out there, because my concern is that with all that energy of holding on to him, you're going to keep attracting evidence that you're not important and you're not worthy. And that's why people are going to keep on ghosting.
I see. Yeah. 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 It's really tough though, to get to that point. And it's just, I feel like if I think one of the things that you mentioned was the whole, you know, playing from the cool girl mentality. And I think, what leads me to my next question is that what sort of special boundary setting do we need to do so that this doesn't really happen again?
Well, here's the thing. With something like that, there's like a million little choice points along the way, right? We talked about like, you know, letting somebody know what it is that you're looking for. So like on the second or third date, you know, just having a casual conversation. I'm in a place in my life where I'm really looking for a long-term committed relationship. What about you? Right? They kind of rule themselves out. If somebody doesn't respond, you know, in a timely manner, or they come back in a couple days and they're like, hey, right? And that repeats. You can send a message that's like, you know, I'm, you know, happy to hear from you because I'm, you know, enjoying getting to know you. But one thing that's really important to me is, you know, consistent communication and trying to build a relationship. period. You know?
Oh, yeah, I like that. All right.
Yeah. And the thing is, like, if they can't do that, that's like basic. In fact, the clients that we work with, you know, when they're actually dating and they're attracting all these great guys, it's funny. Like, even one of my clients, Marie's like dating this really great guy. And she's just like, she tells him, you know, I just love it. Like, you're so consistent and reliable. Like, you say you're going to call tomorrow, you call tomorrow. You say you're going to text me tonight. And he was like, that's amazing. And she's like, yes, it is amazing. Right? Because so many people don't do it. But the bottom line is there's so many guys that are like, well, duh, of course you would do that.
Mm-hmm.
So the only way to shift your energy, right, is to really be that person who has boundaries and holds that expectation. There's nothing cool about letting people walk all over you.
Right. Right.
So if somebody, I mean, when I was back in the day when I was dating, I was talking to this guy and he kept kind of like you're describing, you know, like, hey, let's get together. Okay, great. I'm free Friday and Saturday. I don't have my kids. And then he wouldn't call. And then the next Wednesday, hey, oh my God, I totally got busy. Like, I'd love to get together, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so finally, I just said, look, I am totally looking for a guy whose words and actions match. And I already know that we're not a match. We don't even need to meet because, and no judgment, but like, you've asked me out like kind of 3 times and it never happens, which is totally fine, but that's not what I'm looking for.
And you said all those things?
I did. And he was like, shit, now I really regret that I didn't meet you because that's awesome. And I was like, I know. I was like, good luck. Bye.
Wow, that's nice.
Yeah, because I was like, that's bullshit. So instead of just playing games and ignoring him, I was just like, look, this is awesome. Now we don't even need to meet.
Yeah.
Because that's a woman of value. And what I love about that story is that in the end, he was like, oh, damn, like, you're confident. Like, actually, I screwed that one up.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So that's how you hold boundaries right from the beginning. I have another client, oh my gosh, Julie, who listens to this podcast all the time, who had a guy who was not making, he would ask her out on a date, for example, on Saturday. He'd ask her like on a Monday. And then she wouldn't hear from him till like Friday night or Saturday morning. And she was like, that doesn't work for me. Like, I need to know what the plan is or else I'll do something else. And so all she said was like, hey, I love getting to know you. I'm loving our dates. I'm a person who like needs to kind of know what we're doing because I work and I volunteer and I'm training for race. You know, she had a big life. And he was like, oh my God, of course. And then he just did it. He just made plans.
Okay. Oh, wow. Yeah.
It's not rocket science. But it feels like it when you're the cool girl and you're so used to just not turning your complaints into desires, as Laura Doyle says, who was also on this podcast. We end up getting kind of walked all over.
Right. Yeah.
And then quality guys will not come into your space, and those low quality guys will take advantage of it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So would it be the same way if you know, I think I'm also thinking on the other side of the coin here, even if you do set boundaries, there's no certainty that ghosting will happen or will not happen.
Exactly, because you're dealing with humans.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Right. And it's a numbers game. And some will and some won't. And the most important thing is that when you're dating with dignity, you don't take it personally. Right. It's like you're holding this standard and you're like, okay, who's gonna like treat me and respect me through their actions and their words because I'm amazing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I think that's the place where I need to work on. And I think if I've learned anything from this experience and whatever, I wouldn't even call it a relationship, whatever it was that we had, some sort of bond at least. I mean, I don't want to like.
It was a relationship.
Yeah,
it was.
Yeah, it was a relationship. So if there's anything I've learned is to kind of take, and what you're saying, Marni, is to kind of take, you know, your needs and your wants and what's important to you, but delivering it in a way that exudes confidence and sort of doesn't demasculate the other person.
Exactly, right? So you're not like blaming or criticizing, right?
Mm-hmm.
Or being sarcastic. You're just saying, "Hey, like this is the standard and the way that I like to be treated, and like I'd love for you to be that guy. And if you're not, that's totally okay. Cuz the right guy is totally going to show up."
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. And would you also say the same thing? I mean, what is your take on this whole people dating on using dating apps, and how I think ghosting happens a lot on dating apps, and while you're being ghosted, they can just they're talking to different people. And I think that's what's more frustrating, is that, okay, if this doesn't work out, first of all, I don't need to tell people that I don't think it's a good fit, so I'm just going to ghost them, and then I'm going to go find another person, because I can just swipe right in a few seconds.
Well, right. And so here's the thing. Quality guys, quality men are not going to do that. I also think that with dating apps and just technology in general, people can hide behind that, and they forget that they're talking to humans. And people become like a commodity, right? Rather than like a treasure. And so the thing is that for every guy that does that, there's going to be a guy who would never do that. And so we can't make the circumstance our problem, because everybody has that same circumstance. So the best thing to do is to not let that be your problem, because it's just what it is. Right. So, and there's women that do that too.
Yeah, that's true.
There's women that do it too, right?
Yeah.
So here's the thing. Here's the thing for you. Be the person you want to attract. Have good dating karma. Right? If someone you're not interested in, tell them. Like, I really appreciate the note. I'm super flattered, but we're not a match. And then you have to be okay if they get all bitter about it. Or you just hold them in good space and you don't answer, which is different from, interacting with someone and then disappearing.
Right.
Right. But if someone says something creepy or weird, or you lose interest, practice good dating karma. Say, you know what? Like I did with that guy, right? Like, you know what? We're just totally not a match. This is really clear to me at this point. Best of luck. No harm, no foul. So what's your takeaway from our conversation today?
I have a lot of takeaways. You said a lot of insightful things. I think that it's really important to set boundaries in the beginning, and sort of going into your interaction with going into a romantic interaction with an intent in mind, whether that be you're not looking for a relationship, or you are looking for a relationship, or you're just looking for to build a connection. But whatever those reasons are, to act reasonably, to make sure that your behaviors match what your reason is. So like if I'm going in with, like I went in with this guy, I went in with the mindset of just wanting to build a connection, but I clearly wanted more. And so I should have communicated my boundaries, saying that, you know what, I'm looking for a relationship, and if that's not something that you're looking for, that's cool, but I don't want to waste your time or anything like that. And I also learned to not play the cool girl all the time, because that is not cool. Because people will, step over your boundaries, and at the end of the day, somebody who's cool is somebody who stands their ground and really puts themselves first, and make sure that they get treated in a respectful way. And I think the other thing is to not let these things affect you, and to not stay in this energy, because if I stay in this energy and I keep dwelling in it, then this is not going to come, this is going to seep into my other interactions with people, and then it's going to be this whole endless cycle of energy attracts energy. And so if I'm in this energy, I'm going to attract that same kind of energy. And then the other thing I also learned is that to forgive and look at this relationship with kindness and compassion, instead of bitter and resentment, and to take from it what I did, and to sort of move on and sort of practice putting myself first and communicating my needs in a confident, loving way.
I love that. Wow, you have like a ace memory there. I love it. And I think, really honestly, what we really talked about on this show is like, these are the basics of dating with dignity. And what I really want you to hear, and everyone else who's listening, is, in that relationship, all you want is to feel important and to feel loved and to feel significant. And what you need to know, whether he's treating you that way or not, you are important, you are loved, and you are significant. And hold that truth into all the interactions with any other guy that you ever come into to meet. Okay. That I love it. I love it. Sanjana, you are awesome. This is probably going to be the top rated episode, just because freaking everybody is had an experience with ghosting. I so appreciate your vulnerability and your honesty, and keep us posted and let us know what happens as a result of this energy shift.
Yes, I will. Thank you so much for giving me such good insight and kind of helping me reflect on what it is that, I went through.
Awesome. And ladies, so it's obvious if you haven't been doing it yet, now we just totally broke down how to do it. And that is my final message for the show, which is, don't forget to date with dignity. All right, we'll talk to you soon. Bye-bye.